Hi, welcome to another in our lessons on word choices. The last time we were looking at synonyms and antonyms. Today we are going to be looking at how antonyms are formed by prefixes. So you will recall that an antonym is a word that conveys opposite meaning. We are going to be using prefixes to form antonyms, to form words that will convey opposite meanings. So we'll be explaining what the prefixes are, and I'm going to show you how to create antonyms by using prefixes. At the end of this lesson, you should be able to do just that. Before we go any further, we must establish though what exactly is a prefix. A prefix is one or more syllables added to the beginning of a word to make a new word. I'll soon show you exactly what they look like. But note this, I want you to be aware that when you add the prefix, it does not change the spelling of the original word. That is a word you're adding the prefix to. It does not change the spelling of that word. But it does change the meaning somewhat because it does make it an opposite word. So let us look at some examples of prefixes. Anti, dis, in, il, im, ir, miss, and on. Remember, the definition says that the prefix is one or more syllables that you add to the beginning of the word to create a new word. This is an example. The anti is an example of a two-syllable word. Anti. Two syllables. All the others here are one-syllable words. Now let's look at some antonyms as examples of each of these prefixes. First one. Antibacterial. Disrespect. For in, inappropriate. For ill, illegal. And for im, it could be impossible. Then for ir, irresponsible. An example for miss could be misrepresent. And for on, it could be unclear. Now, notice that these prefixes, let's separate them a little bit so that you can see how they're functioning. Anti, when added to bacterial, means that it is no longer bacterial, meaning that it is fighting any bacteria that exists. Anti, against. So it's the opposite. So if something was bacterial, it would mean that it has potential to have bacteria or it has bacteria. But when you add anti to it, it is no longer so. So it becomes antibacterial. It fights bacteria. So we often use antibacterial soaps, for example. Then, what about disrespect? Dis, when added to respect, which is an existing word, makes the word the opposite of what was intended. So respect is the word. We add dis to it as a prefix and we get the opposite of respect, which is disrespect. Same thing here for inappropriate. Something is appropriate. His dress is appropriate. His shoes is appropriate for the weather. Add into it and it is not appropriate. And we could do the same here again for illegal. Ill added to legal makes something no longer legal. So he brought an illegal firearm into the venue. That is, he does not have any authority. He is not legal. Then there is impossible. Possible. Put him in front of possible and it is no longer possible. So it is impossible for the driver to get to Montego Bay in 1 hour. He can't get there. It's possible for him to get to Ocho Rios in 1 hour. That is if he's coming from Kingston. But he can't get to Montego Bay. It is impossible. Responsible. Add ear to responsible and we get not responsible. And the same will go for miss. Notice miss added to represent, and the same thing for clear. On added to clear. Now what I want you to notice about these examples is that the words that we added the prefixes to, they are existing words, meaning they have a meaning. Bacterial, respect, appropriate, legal, possible, responsible, represent, and clear. All these are words in their own right with their meanings. We add anti to it. The meaning, the spelling doesn't change like we said earlier, but the words become the opposite of what they meant initially. Let's have a look at a table which will show us give us some more information on these. We have used some of the same words, but let us look. Here they are with all of the definitions and the meaning. So for example, anti, to prevent something, the opposite of something. This, when added to verbs, mean to reverse a process or show the opposite of something. This, when added to nouns, means the opposite of something. And then all the others mean not or the opposite of. And here we have several examples in each case to show us. So antibacterial, here's another one, anti-wrinkle, antihistamine, anti-hero. Notice that the anti is being added to existing words. Discomfort, disadvantage, disapprove, disinterested. Notice dis added, comfort exists, advantage, approve, interested. All of these definite, effective, sufficient, sincere, we put in and we get the opposite to these words. Logical, legible, legitimate, all of them. You go through each of these and you will see that these are words that already exist. We add the prefixes and we get the opposite of what they meant initially. Based on the information given in the table, could you say which of the following words is using a prefix that forms an antonym? Let's choose the prefix dis. I'm going to write some words here and you're going to identify for me the ones that you think are the antonyms. So our prefix is this. Here goes. Distress. Dissatisfied. Disturb. Distant. Disappointed. And our last word, disable. And I'm going to put disability beside it because I want to make a point later on. about this word. So look at them. Let's take the first one. Distress. This is the prefix we are using, so we have to isolate this. So let's put a line between them. This is our prefix, and we end up with this word called tress. No, there's no word called tress in English. So we couldn't say that this is an antonym, because remember we said there must be a whole word, an existing word, a word that carries its own meaning, that we must add this prefix to in order to create the antonym. So this is definitely not an antonym. What about dissatisfied? Let's put the line again after this. Isolate this. Satisfied. Yes. So satisfied is a word. So yes, dissatisfied would be an antonym. Look at this term. This, and let's put the line after this again. Terb. No, we don't have such a word. So this terb is not an antonym. Next one. Distant. That's not one either. Disappointed. Well, yes, there's such a word as appointed. But what does appointed mean? Appointed means to give somebody a role, a title, a task. But if we put disappointed as we know the word, it means sad. We're saddened by something. Something did not happen the way we wanted to, and it saddens us. We're disappointed. Remember now that appointed means to give a title to someone. So it obviously this is not going to be an antonym. It's a whole word all by itself. The fact that there is this existing word and you seem to be adding this to suggests that it could be an antonym. But when you look at the meaning of appointed and then you look at the meaning of disappointed, you'll see that they do not share the same meaning. So it would not be an antonym. This tells us then that there are some words which may carry the same apparent syllable, dis, but it does not mean that it is always going to create an antonym. Let us look at disable. Disable. Disable and disability are words that we use in reference to someone or something that does not have the ability as others may have to get things done because of some physical defect that they may have. So persons who are blind are often referred to as being disabled, or somebody with one leg, or somebody with one arm. Somebody who is confined to a wheelchair is often referred to as being disabled, or that they have a disability. However, if we want to say something one is not able to do something, we do not use this as the antonym. The antonym that is used is unable. Or we will say somebody, he has an inability, there is an inability. So it's not this that is used, but rather on and in. When you see disable and disability, you have to count it as one word. It is not opposite to any thing. It is one word that is not an antonym, even though there is the syllable dis added to it. If you want to represent the meaning of one not being able to do something, you must use on or in. These two are prefixes which mean not, so they work just as well. Alright, that's it today for our lesson on antonyms formed by prefixes. I trust you remember, if nothing else, that you form your antonym by adding the prefix "dis" to a word that already exists, and that where the exceptions lie, as in the case with disappointed and disable, that you recognize that they are words on whole words which have a meaning that this does not affect, that the syllable "dis" does not affect. So see you. Practice the exercises that come at the end in your end of topic quizzes as you learn to form antonyms by using prefixes.